you.
Hi, everyone. This is Adele Newton. I am the Executive Director of CS-Can InfoCan, and I'm really thrilled to welcome everyone today to our webinar on resilience for success. We're in webinar mode here on Zoom, so that means that you are all muted, but we will use the chat box. If you have any questions, I will be monitoring that and let Jen know if there are any questions that come up. In the meantime, let me introduce Jen Schrafft, who's our professional coach. She's done some work for us and the Canadian Women in Computer Science Conference back last November when we actually could meet in person. And I'm really grateful for Jen to be talking to us today about resilience. I'm going to hand it over to you, Jen, and I'll let you know if anyone has any questions. We are recording, and we'll make this available for you to look at, get to listen to and look at again, or for those people who weren't able to join us today. So Jen, it's all yours.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Adele. Hi, everybody. So I just noticed a quick question in the chat box, which is a good one. I'll hit from the top. I do have some worksheets that do go along with this webinar. It's only 3. They're very basic. If you'd like the worksheets, drop me an email, or you can put it in the chat here. You can just say, yes, please send me the worksheets as we go. And Adele or I will have those sent out to you. As I was saying before we started recording, the worksheets are so that you can really take what we talk about here over the next 60 minutes and make it your own. This isn't, of course, the ideal way to talk about, well, to do any kind of presentation, because it's hard to get the back and forth from the crowd. So as you have questions, please don't be shy. Comments, questions, do put something in the chat box. So that Adele can either interrupt me, let me know that there's a question, or it's something that we can address after if we do run out of time. So what I want to start by saying is this. First of all, I'm overwhelmed by the number of people who are interested in this topic. Obviously with this group, and I've done it for a number of other associations and professional groups. The reason that I think so many of us are jumping into, how do I get more resilient? What can I do? It's obvious with the global pandemic that everything is upside down. We're not doing anything the way we used to, or most of the things that are expected of us are expected to be delivered differently. And within that, there's a lot of talk around going back to something. Can we get back to normal? And then we also hear, let's get to the new normal. So many of the things that we hear in the news and on LinkedIn and everywhere that we're looking, it becomes a bit of white noise, and I get that. Try today to show up with the intention of just being open to some new ways of looking at things, rather than trying to fit it into, oh, I've tried that before, or that won't work, or, oh, yeah, I'm going to try that. Just look at this as a whole lot of different ways that you can look at things and apply them or not. Because a lot of the things that I'm going to be touching on are simply ideas that you need to personalize in your own work as a student, your own life as a human, whether you're a student, a prof, an administrator, but you're probably also a sister, a brother, a mom, a dad, whatever you are. There's a lot going on. So if you have things that you do want to talk about in more depth, let me know. I am a coach, which means, just to go off what Adele said, a little bit of an explanation. Coaching, I have a professional background in business, but I switched to coaching a few years ago, I guess it was 6 years ago now, and became professionally trained because I'm interested in human development, and I'm interested in helping people apply human development. So I'm a huge proponent of therapy as well. I tell all of my clients and attendees that this isn't therapy. And, as much as we're talking about how we're feeling and how things affect us, we aren't talking so much about the past as referencing it so that we can look at what are the actions we can actually take for the future to make things work for me. So that's the context of how we're going to move forward today. We're going to go through 3 different sections. So let's jump in. And I'm trying to advance my slides. Are you seeing the first slide yet, Adele?
I see that. There we go.
There we go. All right. Context here of resilience is that you know, we hear the word resilience and we think, or maybe we think bouncing back. Bouncing back, yes, but as you listen and participate today, don't think of bouncing back to perfect shape. Think of, you know, everything that's happening in the world right now, and that what we're really trying to do is set ourselves back up for success, even if we're a little banged up, even if we're a little tired. I'm hearing from a lot of you, and thank you, by the way, to all of you who answered the questions we sent out. People are exhausted. People are saying that, you know, fatigue is really starting to wear them down as to what's going to happen, uncertainty. And so the goal today isn't dust yourself off, you're good as gold, everything's fine. No, I want you to look at resilience, and we'll jump into this right away as we redefine it, as how can you set yourself up to be successful based on the new rules. And the new rules are going to be different for everybody. So having said that, you know, this picture, my plan for 2020 was that I was booked to speak at all kinds of things. You know, it was probably the busiest calendar I've ever had. I was traveling all over the place. And I love people. Like, I get a lot of energy from speaking to people. So suddenly, you know, I'm sitting here in my office, and that's my reality instead of being out in front of you. And there's a lot that had to happen for me to reconcile that this was the way things were going to go. And the first thing I had to do was get really real on redefining what resilience is for me. But what I realized is that the thing that drives me is helping people adapt and thrive. And so if I have to do that in a different way, that's what I have to do. We're all learning, we're all figuring things out. And I think that it's been a few months now, right? We're almost month 4 and 5. So we're giving each other a little bit more flexibility as to how we do that. When you look at this image on your screen, this is how I see the last few months for us. And if you can see on the right-hand side, I think we don't have a mirrored screen, but you'll see a paved road. And pre-COVID, so if you think of January this year, although I guess in January for most of us, we'd have snow on the road, we were, you know, heading along a paved surface. We could see the turns coming. We saw any obstacles in our way, but we could navigate those, right? We could get past them. And then suddenly there's this huge, and you know, in this picture, I'm using the landslide as the example for the world changing. And next thing you know, we're at the bottom of this landslide where we are not on the path that we thought we'd be on. Things are definitely not smooth. We aren't sure if we're in danger or how to get back there. And in fact, a lot of folks I'm talking to are even looking the other way and saying, is it easier to go the hard way? Is it easier to, instead of getting back to where I was on that paved road, creating a new path for myself? You know, and of course, in this image, it's, am I going to wade into the river? Am I going to be carving a new path up through the mountains? And as much as getting back to normal would be great, if we could just sort of erase the last few months, we know that's not going to happen. So when we think instead about the choices that we're going to make, you know, it's really important to be intentional about the choice versus following the same old thing. And that's what I implore you to do today. In each section that we go through, think about you. Think about your path, whether you be, you know, whether you're a student, as I said, an administrator, a prof, whoever else is here, grad student, and which choice are you going to make? How is that going to get you to where you need to be? Because the choices are all going to be moving and different. I think of that shell game where they move the shells and you have to find the ball. That's kind of what's happening all the time. Every time you think you know what's going to happen, it might change again. Announcements about September, you know, are you going to be in class? Are you going to be remote? Are you going to be half and half, part-time? What will labs look like? All of these uncertainties are changing every day. So as we walk through this and you think about the choices that you're making, make sure that your choices are leading back to what you want. So let's quickly jump into the feedback that you're giving me, which is excellent feedback, by the way. When I asked you what's challenging your resilience, what I'm hearing is this: feeling Lonely and isolated, of course, challenges your feeling of being kind of back to normal. Doing things new ways. We're learning again. You're creating new lesson plans. You're learning new platforms. It's exhausting. It might be exciting, but it's still tiring. Sitting in a chair all the time. You might notice I'm actually standing today, so I'm sorry I'm wavering, but I got so tired of always sitting in my chair and doing these webinars. And man, do I get that, the feeling of sedentary lifestyle. The mental game. And someone had messaged me and said, it's the feeling of knowing that this, like, when is this ever going to end? How long do I have to keep changing? We know that change is very difficult on us, and that it creates, oh gosh, cortisone buildup, all kinds of things that are making us unhealthy physically as well as mentally with constant change. And that starts to wear on us when we wonder, is this change ever going to end? And, in that sense of mental and physical lethargy, it's the idea that, okay, well, now I'm supposed to have all this time with my family. I'm home with them. I'm too tired to play with them. In my case, I've got 2 little kids. Or you might think, oh, I'm supposed to be out biking now because I have all this extra time, something that you couldn't do in the past, but you don't want to because you're starting to sort of wonder, where is all of my energy going? And so as I give these examples that are all obviously, applicable to, and we're across Canada and we also are across the board with what all of you do, keep in mind that today we're touching on the idea of setting yourself up for success, but we aren't talking about serious mental health in terms of, do you need more help? There is more than ever a need for reaching out if you're worried. If you're not thriving, please reach out. If you don't know who to reach out to myself or Adele, and we can connect you with either your campus facilities or just to help you out until you reach that point, because at no stage do we want anyone to feel alone. And I know, and I've kept all of your answers to me only with me, and they won't be shared anywhere else. Confidentiality is really important, but I have seen quite a few replies saying, the loneliness and isolation is really wearing on your mental health, and the feeling is sad, and the feeling isn't that things are easy right now. So I want you to know you're not alone to start off with, because I don't know, but I'm assuming you're not sharing this with everyone else. So I'll share with you. I'm hearing it everywhere. I'm not just hearing it from you. All the groups I talk to, I'm talking to people from, students to associations to not-for-profits to bankers. They're all feeling the same way. And, it's a matter of, yes, this will end. Yes, we will get through this. But if you need a hand in the meantime, please reach out. The unknowns, that's really the thing that's wearing us down. So resilience, as I mentioned, is becoming a bit of a buzzword. Let's jump into what we're doing today so that we make sure that resilience isn't a buzzword, but instead it's actually a way for you to take action. We're going through 3 sections. We're going to redefine resilience based on your life right now. We're going to reframe your current realities. And when I say we are going to reframe yours, you're going to be thinking about and applying what we're talking about to your situation. And then I want you to set yourself up for intentional action moving forward so that you have a plan. You're stuck right now. There's unknowns. How are you going to ensure? One of the questions I had, a number of profs said this, how will I know that the students are actually understanding what I'm trying to teach? And the students saying, how will I know if I'm actually learning properly and getting it? And so when we look at the end of today, and certainly reach out to me if you want more help with your plan when we're finished, I'm happy to give away a 30-minute session for everyone if you need it at no charge. Just let me know. But it's going to take some trial and error. You're not going to come out today at 1 o'clock and go, perfect, I've got the perfect plan. That's just not how it goes, right? You have to try and try again. Redefining resilience. Very quickly, If we call resilience the proper definition of ability to recover or adjust easily, we are fooling ourselves. There's no easily about this, and there's no quickly. So really, I want you to think about this. What if I'm actually adjusting with forward action and optimism, and that's it? So someone says, hey, how's your resilience? Yeah, it's actually pretty good, because as I fall down and I make a mistake, I get back up, and it doesn't look pretty and it's not perfect, but it's going to be okay. That's the beginning of redefining it for yourself. It's having that mindset that perfect has no place in this right now, because even if you got it perfect, your school could change your rules and regulations. Even if you got it perfect, you might find that you're really not grasping the material. So you need to, even though you're attending all the classes, you might need to reach out to your prof and have one-on-one sessions. It's going to change as time goes on. And change is the biggest question. So I don't think we're actually going to do a poll where everyone clicks. I just want you to answer in your chat box. What do you think? Is resilience something you're born with? So you have it or you don't? Thanks, everyone's starting to jump in. Perfect.
Jen, you can see the answers, right?
You can see. Yeah, sometimes my chat box disappears, but I can see them this time. I don't know why it disappears sometimes, so it's working out great. Yeah, this isn't, this isn't rocket science, that's for sure, but you're absolutely right, guys. This is something you can change. And the thing is, if you have the right mindset, you can change anything. I am not someone who used to believe that. And I think that's what makes me a good coach. I was a real naysayer, and I thought that this was all smoke and mirrors, until I realized that, if you tell yourself, frankly, that things are going to be terrible come fall, and that it would never work unless it was the way it used to be, that's exactly what's going to happen. So as we jump forward, I want you to start to think about this is something I'll send out to you afterward if you'd like it, so you can think about this for yourself. So I've just got a few examples here. Your pre-COVID resilience. If you said, okay, I was really resilient because I was balancing school, I had a part-time job, I was paying my rent, getting summer job, getting OSAP, doing whatever you need to do, attending your classes, and if you were a prof, you were back and forth, you're on campus, you're managing family life, commuting, all these different things. That might have been how you defined it. And none of that applies anymore. It's completely changed, so throw it out. At this stage, if you're sort of looking at these examples and thinking to yourself, okay, and I gave this example in the last one, that some students had written to me that they're unsure if they'll actually understand when everything's taught online, if that's what's going to happen. I know different schools have made different calls. Another example of resilience right now is that because everything's going to be in line, you've got to figure out your IT. You've got to get a booster if you need it. You've got to figure out how you are actually going to connect. And that's not something you've had to do before. So leaning into it and making it a reality is obviously going to give you a whole lot more energy to learn and grow than resisting it. Yes, I'm not going to disagree with you. It does suck that we have to do this, and that, patchy internet. And I've done so many of these webinars where they freeze, but it's what we're working with. So accepting and moving forward is a whole different way of looking at being resilient now that you didn't have to have before. Or you probably did, but it wasn't at the forefront. Example with profs. If you're constantly now being asked to, or in the future, asked for one-on-ones, instead of lecturing to however many people you were lecturing to, you're now dealing with that times 30 or that times 100, or how many office hours. Your scheduling has probably become a bit of a nightmare, or it might seem like it's going to. So that for you is, you know, how you doing? Are you resilient? Well, now I'm dealing with all of these things. So again, leaning into it and figuring out your action steps, as we'll do down the line here, is really going to put you in a place of getting through instead of being stuck. The idea of improving your resiliency, and, you know, as we said before, being born with it, the two things that really jump out are the thought patterns, so changing your thought pattern. And another one that really jumps out is being decisive. When I say jumps out, I mean when, for example, if you don't know if classes are going to be online or in person, you can't make a decision, you can't make a plan. And that's going to throw things completely upside down. Starting to nail down decisions helps. And even if you don't have all of the answers from the structure of where you're learning, you can still make decisions for yourself. So really thinking about going through this yourself and thinking about, okay, which things jump out for me? You might see different ones. You might say, okay, you know, if you're a prof, you're going to lead with integrity. You really want to make sure everyone understands that, you know, you can be reached at any time as long as they're learning, whatever way you're going to do it. But it really depends on what's jumping out at you. These are ones I'm seeing in the replies I got from you. So that's why I've highlighted them. And again, if we don't have time in today's session, reach out to me if you need help with anything specific there. Look at these pictures. I think everyone can probably see them. We've got the worn, dog-eaten, soggy, ripped apart tennis ball. And the sort of perfect bright green one that's straight out of the sleeve of tennis balls. The perfect bouncing tennis ball is where we all think we should be. And, you know, nobody wants to feel torn and worn and chewed and spat out. Nobody wants to feel, okay, if I bounce, I'm going to thud. I'm not going to, or if I'm dropped kind of thing, I'm not going to bounce back. But what's important is sort of looking at the changes that are happening different days. Things are going to feel different. When the days you're feeling less resilient, you're really going to be struggling with change outside of your control. And we'll talk about control a little bit later. And let me know how you feel, if you feel comfortable in the chat, which one you're resonating with here. You might notice, geez, I really am feeling less resilient because change is feeling personal. Feels like this is about me. You know, maybe the profs just don't understand I have to be, you know, in person to learn. And it's not about you, right? It's a global pandemic. You're not thriving or growing. You are simply existing. And another example is being asked to do something that you didn't sign up for. So maybe you've been asked to take on, maybe take less courses because they can't offer all of them at the same time. Maybe it's, hey, can you also take on, you know, adding office hours for this program? And it starts to feel very like you're being taken advantage of, rather than, okay, here's the situation and I'm playing with it. And that's where blame and judgment starts to pop in. When you talk about being more resilient, and see how you see the difference here, and tell me if anyone's feeling a little bit like this. And again, it might change day to day. I know for me it does. You might have a higher self-confidence because you've sort of said, you know what, I've been through something like this before. No one's ever been through the pandemic, by the way, as I know. But something like this where there's been a major change with maybe how you teach, or maybe you've had an international move, or you've had something that's really turned things upside down for you and you survived it. So you're thinking, you know what, if I can get through that, I can probably get through this. Potentially you realize, okay, as I look at these things, I'm looking at it with open eyes, and it's, what's the opportunity here? Instead of, ugh, why is it always changing? So you'll notice when you start to pay attention to things, how you're reacting. And I want you to start really noticing those reactions in yourself, because that's when you start to realize, okay, whoa, the scales have tipped and I'm not going to be going anywhere with this. I'm not moving forward if I'm sitting in judgment of decisions that are being made. We aren't all going to agree with the decisions being made, that's for sure. But are we going to work with them? Are we going to intentionally fight them, which is fine? Or are we going to feel a victim to it and be angry and do nothing? You can also be curious. And when I say be curious, one of the things that if you're ever really angry and you can't see past that anger, it's like the red wall. If you shift your mindset to actually being curious about why the decision was made, all the different things that might have gone into the decision, and thinking about what all the different individuals making the decision are coming to the table with, it completely changes your anger. It takes emotion out, and it starts to allow for more opportunities and more solutions. And when you're in a more resilient place, you see opportunity and solution instead of seeing problems. So having seen both of these, are there any of you that feel one is more strong than the other? I see a couple of you have jumped in. I like that. Someone has just said they feel like the Warren ball, but it's a little bit better than what's there. Another person saying they feel both. What about the rest of you? Is it one or the other, or is it a bit of both? Bit of both, bit worn. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that if I was asked this a week ago, I might have given even a different answer than today. Because as things are evolving and changing, and as we're looking toward a future that we've never, ever had to navigate before, we have different emotions. And those come from our beliefs, right? Will we believe that it will be okay? Will we believe that it's all going to crash and burn? And it's a real challenge to tune into that and to be intentional each day. I am not the person who's the Pollyanna and says, just jump out of bed every day and it'll be fine. Of course, it's not going to be fine every day. But shifting into the mindset of not having to be this ball on the right, it gives you a little more space. What about somewhere in between? I think that's really the ideal, that we're looking at, yeah, I don't want to crash and burn, but I also don't need to be perfect. So we've already done this, so I'll just skip through. Let's keep this in mind as we look at redefining what resilience really is. It's not perfection. And the shift here is that the standard is different. I'm in a time where things have never been like this. I'm learning as a student in a time where no one's ever had to teach this way. And there's going to be new ways of doing things. So I want you to, as you go and do your work after this, think about that. Can you shift and look at things from a different standard of what your resilience is? Because when you set yourself up that way intentionally, first of all, you stop beating yourself up. You stop judging the decisions of others, and you start to work with the opportunities that are there. Okay, part 2, we're talking about reframing based on your current reality. And everybody, I mean, we've talked about that we're all across Canada here, never mind in different roles. So our realities are different. Can I get a really quick show of, I'll say show of hands, but just chime in the chat. How many folks here are living with roommates? Just write roommate if you have a roommate, or family if you have family, so I can get an idea of your living situation. Great. Looks like a pretty good mix. Lots of family. And I think a lot of folks who were living with roommates may have even moved home. Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys. So your current reality is likely going to be challenging right now. I didn't tell you much about me. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter, and my husband who's in corporate finance at home. So we're both sharing a house with two people. We've got a dog and a cat. I wouldn't say it's chaos. We've got into a rhythm, but it's certainly challenging. And if I told the story that this is a nightmare and I could never get through it, and you know, the only way I can properly coach and do my work is if everyone's out of the house, which might have even been my story, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, that has to be reframed for my current reality for me to move forward. I do need to work in a house where people are coming and going. I do need to work in my little office here to reach the people that I reach. And I do need to reframe all of the tools I have available to me as good ones, but versus, you know, the challenge that they sometimes are. So when you're taking a look at your own circumstances, these examples I created are very random, I guess, because we can't cover everybody. So if you can even think of one, and I don't think we can unmute for anyone to tell their story, but if you want to type one, you can, please do. One that I hear all the time is the reframe of the story that all I do is sit on my computer all day long. I'm so tired of being on my computer from 7 a.m. until, you know, 6 p.m. and then running and making dinner and then running back on and jumping on some kind of webinar or something at night. And that might be true. All of those things are true. They're facts. We're not changing the facts here. But when you're looking at it through the lens of, wow, I can't believe I accomplished getting that much done today, and I can't wait for my run tonight. It's exactly the same fact. You've still sat there from 7 till 6. You've still felt that sitting in your chair isn't what you wanted to do that day. But in the second example, and the one that I've got here, is you've created something for yourself to look forward to at the end of it. And you've actually looked at it from the point of view of a stretch. I never would have been able to sit at my desk that long, you know, 4 months ago. And now somehow I'm doing it. I know it's not ideal, but it's a very realistic example that I'm hearing from clients, and even some of you saying, you know, it's kind of draining me to just sit there all day long. And so reframing your situation to being, hey, yes, I'm sitting here. I also have the flexibility that when I'm finished work, I'm now home. I'm not commuting for an hour and a half. In Toronto here, we have the GO train. So people used to have to commute an hour and a half to get home before they could prepare dinner. At least I can walk downstairs and do that. So it's really looking at both sides, and that's the shift here. The reframe is there any opportunity in this situation? Is there anything good that can come out of this? And, you know, in some of these situations, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of good out of it. It's a real challenge for you, and that's okay. But what's important is that you're shifting how you're looking at it. When you start to do this, you're going to see a big change. Another example, right? So one that I've heard anyway is, for example, and one that was said to me in the email, students are learning differently. So if another school that I teach at Sheridan, they were saying like, oh my God, how am I going to teach these students and test them? How will I know they really are getting it? I get that. That's a genuine concern, and you want to know that what you're teaching is getting through. But there's also points where when I've been working with some of the faculty there, they've realized, in all honesty, this section is much better taught in an online module. We just do it in class because we always have. So they've been able to actually take all of their assumptions and say, hold on, before I throw the baby out with the bathwater here, what does work better in this situation? And what is a struggle? Instead of just assuming everything is a struggle. The reframe is going to alleviate quite a bit of stress that you don't need to take on. Here's one probably everyone can learn from. The idea of being completely sick of your family because they're the only people you get to see. And the reframe I heard was, you know, I'm so sick of my family, I had to hide. I had to run and hide in my house. I can't stand them anymore. And that same client took it away and came back to me and said, okay, instead of looking at this as I'm actually forcing myself to make time for me that I never used to do, because I have to. I can't be around these guys all the time. So I'm creating and protecting time where I'm going and reading my book. Another one, you know, is going and doing yoga in her basement, because that's all she can do. She can't go to her yoga studio right now. But the point is, both sides are true. But when you're reframing it to be something that's going to help you, you're going to get unstuck. Okay. I'm just taking a quick look at the comment. Nicole, is it Nicole? I'm not sure if it's Nicole or L Nicole who wrote that. I think she's just giving us an example. Okay, so the reality, where are you finding it the most difficult? And I'd love if everyone would chime in here. Are you finding it the most difficult to be resilient in your personal relationships, your work relationships, your work assignments or school assignments, I guess, if you're a student? Or is there another area that you're feeling that you're really tripping and not able to get up? What's the worst for you? Okay. Work assignments, work relationships, work. Someone's saying personal, the virus. So interesting that the virus has come up, because yes, the virus is the instigator, right? The virus is the thing causing all the change. And then the trickle down are all of these relationships, because, and it's not just relationships, of course, but it's the cause. Okay, other, accepting admin decisions. Yeah. So accepting, I think you mean accepting decisions of others, Wendy? Thank you. Yeah. Hamid, other. So self-discipline. Okay, that's a great one to talk about, self-discipline as well. Any other comments, guys? Thinking of family back home. Yep, being separated from family. It's always on your mind, probably always bubbling under. And when something like that's always bubbling under, there's a wear and tear. There's an energy drain there. I personally have family back in New Zealand who are supposed to come this summer. We don't know when we'll see them, and they're elderly. So it's always on our mind, you know, their health and wellness and everything else. Okay, here's where I want to remind people of something that I think that we forget. There is no perfect answer here. And, you know, going back to all of these answers that you've just given me, there's, just before I move on, sorry, I advanced by accident there. What you're dealing with is your situation. And that's why when you take this away and look at it from the point of view of your own situation and what you can do. For example, with Judith, you've got people back in your home country. You can't change that. So it's not that you're going to forget about it, but the amount of energy you're going to put into worrying about it is something that you can control. And I want to jump to our next section where we do talk about that and circles of control. But just very quickly to wrap up what we were talking about, reframing, looking at both sides. And that's all it really is looking at both sides of every situation, whether that be personal relationships, work relationships, how you're going to set up your school year, how you're going to handle decisions that you don't really like. There's a positive and negative to all of them. And if there are some where you say, yeah, there's just no positive, that's okay. But as you're going to see in the next section, don't spend your time there. Don't spend your precious energy in those places where you don't have an effect over the decisions being made. So as we move forward to talk about action and taking intentional action versus autopilot action, I want you to do a couple of things. And when we are talking about taking action, sorting things out and realizing, okay, I have a variety of choices here, but I'm not going to see the choices if I'm powering through everything just to get it done. Sometimes you need to take a breath, you need to slow down, and you need to really think through all of the options, even if they don't seem ideal, so that when you're taking action, you don't say to yourself later, well, I had to, I didn't have a choice. This is me saying to you, make your choice based on the information you have, based on the risk factors you have, but be intentional. And here's why. When you shift into being intentional, you shift out of a feeling of being a victim to something else. Man, is it easy to feel like that right now with this virus. I do. There's days where I just think this just isn't fair. But those days aren't usually the days I get a lot done. They aren't maybe the days where I feel I'm in control. And they aren't the days I want to repeat. So let's move forward and jump into our circles of control. If anyone here has ever read any Stephen Covey, very old book, still a great book. I'm sure it's on Audible now as well. But Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And what he talks about in one of the areas of this book are the 3 circles of control. He talks about the red circle, the yellow circle, and the green. The red is dealing with things we worry about, we're concerned about, and we have absolutely no control over. The yellow, we don't have total control. It's not our decision, but we have influence over them. And then the green, our circle of control. And obviously it's getting smaller and smaller for a reason. We can only really control who? Ourselves. You know, there's so many times where when you're stuck in something, you have to stop and go, wait a second, do I have any control over this at all? Or is this just something that I'm ruminating on? So I want you to, when you get your worksheet, if you have reached out for them, the third one gives you these circles. And I've given you examples in here of things that you have no control over. So I want you to fill it in for yourself. But let's go through some of the examples. A global announcement, right? You have no control over what Trump is going to say when he walks out. Well, I shouldn't say he walks out because he doesn't. Our prime minister walks out every day. We don't know what he's going to say. We don't know what our provincial leaders are going to say. We don't know what our universities and schools are going to say. But when they say it, it's out of our control most of the time. It might be something, and there's a reason this is red, it might be something that worries us. It's something we might not agree with. There's, as Wendy said, admin decisions that are maybe absolutely against everything that we think is what should happen. And don't get me wrong, there are times where you might intentionally say, hey, I have no control over this, but I am going to take action to change that decision. That's intentional, that's okay, that's within the yellow. But I guess what I'm getting at is take all the stuff you're worrying about, all the stuff when you can't sleep at night, or you wake up in the morning and don't want to get out of bed, or you finish a meeting and you're just gritting your teeth. Write it down. Is this in my control? Is this something I can do anything about? And if so, what are all the things I could possibly do? When you start to look at it visually and realize that you might be spending time and precious energy on something that you really have no control over, you're going to start doing things differently. And here's why. If all you did was look at the red area and say, oh, I have no control, everything is out of control, that would be the mistake. What you're going to do is focus on where you do have influence. Create new actions for yourself. You know, the examples here are, and one of the ones that I was thinking about, and it could be another whole session, but across our whole country and across every program at every university, but let's be specific with you folks, there are platforms you could be sharing with each other that work really well. You could be reaching out and, you know, having, I don't know, Wednesday beer nights or something with fellow profs so that you can sit down on Zoom and go, what is working for you at your school? Because I tried this and it crashed and I need your input. You know, sharing your what tried and true and tried and fail is the best way to help each other. And we all,
sorry, can I interrupt here? It's Adele.
Yeah.
In fact, CS-Can has been working with faculty members across the country on the Discord platform to do exactly this, to share what's working and what isn't working in terms of teaching, evaluation, and the rest of it. And if any of the faculty members that are on this webinar today are interested, get in touch with me. We've been working with the department chairs and heads, but that's exactly what we've been doing, and it's been very helpful. Sorry, Jackson.
Thank you, Adele. Same with students, right? If you're starting your term and you realize, oh my God, this isn't working for me, you've got to ask. You got to come to the table with, hey, could we try it this way? But taking intentional action to say, hey, I've thought of 3 other ways I can try to do this, rather than solve this problem for me. That's intentional, rather than being in victim mode, which is, oh, this doesn't work for me. It's shifting to actually create opportunity for success. And so getting your mindset around what are the opportunities for success? What are the ways I can help myself? If you haven't been exercising for months and months, there's something missing for you. And it has nothing to do with judgment about who's in shape and who isn't. It's all mental. We know this, right? It's been proven for years and years and years that if we're struggling with resilience, with depression, with isolation, we need to get our lungs working. We need to get moving. And so when I say this, this is an example of something you have control over. You can create something that you can do that's going to help alleviate some stress that is coming from an area that you can't control. I'm realizing we're nearly out of time. Are we, Adele?
I think we've got 10 minutes left.
Okay. So as I, go through some of these examples, this is really just looking at your own way of doing it. So what can you control, and really almost blacking out the areas you can't. Don't spend time in them. Again, the gal who messaged earlier about her family, I'm not saying forget your family overseas, but the same way that I say to clients, how much news are you watching? Be really careful about how you're spending your time. If there's something that really stresses you out and upsets you and you don't have to be spending your time and energy on, don't do it. If you do have to, decide when, decide how, and make sure that you're always leading back to the outcome you want, which again is that tennis ball. You want to be in the middle. You want to be able to bounce back, not be perfect, but not get so worn down with all of these things that are concerning you that you're now you don't bounce at all. You're now kind of the thud on the floor. So it's really being careful about how you're going to spend your time. And this is just a simple way of looking at what your actions are. So when you tease this out, and what I have my clients do is actually working through a journal. And I have them each morning sit down and go, okay, here's something that's really the biggest block for me today. So for an example, maybe their province hasn't reopened. They don't have control over it, but what are their actions that are available? You can get really mad. You can post about it. You can call all your friends and family. You can stomp your feet, and you're likely not going to have any forward movement with your action. It doesn't mean you can't take action. There might be other things you can do, but when you spend your time focusing on the things that you have no control over, all that's doing is turning your mindset into closed rather than growth. Student, for example, you know, you want to go off to school, you want to see your friends, you want to have that same experience, and you can't. So can you control it? Can you influence it? You can control what you worry about. You can't control that school is going to be closed, or that you might not be able to move to Queens and live with all your friends because now you're in your mom's basement in Burlington taking your classes online. Yeah, there's no doubt that's not going to be as much fun, and you're not going to have the camaraderie and all of those things. But when you decide that it's the decision that you're going to make, so you're saying, okay, here's how long I'm going to stay home, here's how much money I'm going to save, here's how I'm going to connect with my friends instead. And knowing that this isn't the end of the road, this is simply an interim, that's really where you're creating your action. It's knowing that this isn't forever, but that for now, what are the things that move me forward versus what are the things that are stopping me and blocking me. The shift is setting down those bags of things you cannot control. And, you know, something that I found helpful that someone said to me once was, think about when you're stressing and you're carrying these worries on your shoulders. Always ask yourself, is this yours to carry? Is it your worry to carry that, I don't know, that the universities aren't opening? It's your worry if you're a prof and want your students to do well in this class, not the entire school. It's not within your purview to make the right decision there. Yes, you should have influence, and I hope you have influence, but for you to really carry out what you want to do, which is give your students the absolute best experience, there's different ways you can be spending your energy. And that's by taking different action. At the beginning of this workshop, we talked about being open to new and different ways of seeing things. And that's why I really advise you, if you can, to connect with each other after this and share what's working. Share what you think might help each other. This is definitely something we need to go into together. We can't do this one alone. And I say this one meaning COVID and going back to school and how we're doing it all. You can, but it's going to be a lot harder. So connect with each other, share your stories, give yourselves the benefit of wisdom, and also backing each other up, right? This isn't easy. And so connecting with each other, even socially, is going to be really important. So when you look at the 3 things in the worksheets you're going to get, you're going to look at redefining your resilience based on what's happening right now. And right now will probably change. The last time I did this webinar was 4 weeks ago, and a lot's changed, so I had to update quite a bit of it. You're going to reframe. What are the things that are actually working, and what steps can you take? What are the positives that could come out so that you can make a plan of action? What are you going to intentionally stop thinking about? What actions will you intentionally start doing and stop doing? For example, starting exercise, stopping watching CNN constantly, or checking how many cases of the virus are killing people, whatever is bringing you to a point of paralysis, to stop it. And then pulling all of those together, what you're able to do is say, okay, this is my plan. This is my plan for bouncing back each day during a pandemic. It's not for everyone. I can't use this cookie cutter plan and tell my friends to do it because we all have different situations. So it's really important to make it your own. Do reach out to me if you need help. Do support each other. And if you can have an accountability partner, it's really the best way to go. An accountability partner is simply somebody who checks in on you to make sure you're doing what you said you were going to do. It might be someone who goes for a run with you. It might be someone in your faculty that you want to check in with and say, hey, you know, I'm trying to use this platform and I'm really struggling. Can you help me out? Like, ask for help. It's hard if you've never asked for help. You're an extremely intelligent group, and it might be the first time you've had to ask for help. But when you think about doing it yourself, do you really want to spend the time to try to figure it out when someone else has already done it? And finally, be kind to yourself. This is a tough time, and celebrate the wins. Don't let them go by without really acknowledging the good stuff that you're doing. Keep in mind, if I can say this as I sign off, that not only are you so important because you are, you know, a generation of people who are learning during the craziest period that we've ever gone through, but you're learning from people who not only have the knowledge as your profs, but have the knowledge and the energy and know-how to adapt to something that's never happened before. So you're both in this incredible bubble of opportunity for new things. And that means giving each other a lot of space to make mistakes, space and time to figure things out. I know you want to have the answers yesterday, but sometimes we can't. And really giving each other, you know, have a bit of a sense of humor, have a bit of lightness about it, because we're just the human beings dealing with this, and people make mistakes. I would love to hear from you. So here's all of my contact details. I have a Facebook group, and I do coaching there with a group. I lead webinars. I have my Instagram. I have a newsletter I'd love to sign you up for that's free. It's up to you. Just email me. Anyone who wants a free coaching session, I'll do a 60-minute coaching session with you, but I'm only offering two. So the first two people who email me and are interested in more of a deeper dive after today, I'll be reaching out to you. All you have to do is email me and answer the question, what would you like coaching to help you achieve? So what are you trying to help, really? This would be where I have saved, is there any time for questions? I don't know if we have any time for questions. If we do, then Adele, you can facilitate.
Well, people can stay on if they wish, and if there are questions, we can take them through the chat. I want to thank you, Jen, for some really good advice. I know Wendy wrote that it sounds like you're spying on me, and I will say the same thing. Some of the things I was thinking this morning, you hit on exactly, like being sick of my family and being sick of sitting in this office. But if anyone has any questions they would like to ask right now, we can do them by chat with Jen. Otherwise, I will send out Jen's information, contact information, to everyone who participated today. And I want to thank all of you who took the time today to participate in the webinar. I know that we're all doing all kinds of things over Zoom, and I like to think that some are more, fill our buckets more than others. So I personally really enjoyed this today. And I'll just look and see if anyone has any questions, and otherwise Jen will do things individually by email through you.
Perfect. And I'm just noticing some of the folks did post earlier in the chat group that they wanted a worksheet, but
yeah, I'll send that to,
okay, great, because I don't have their email. So
in fact, I'll send a note to everyone who participated today to make them aware of the worksheet, and make sure that people, that you get the information, Jen.
Excellent.
It doesn't look like there are any questions, so I will thank you. People are saying thank you, so that's great.
You're very welcome.
And if anyone else has any questions you think about later, you can feel free to send them to me or to Jen individually, and we'll take it from there. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.